Hello everyone, welcome to LUKMAAN IAS. Today we are going to have the Hindu analysis of 13th January 2021. So let us see which are the important articles in today's The Hindu newspaper. So these are the articles, largely they relate to mains examination. Some of the prelims pointer have been added whenever we found them relevant for our examination. So let us see first article on page number 6, reclaiming SARC from the ashes of 2020. So the context of the article here, it is specifically talking about the need of reviving SARC, or let's say South Asian Association of Regional Cooperation. For regional cooperation, ये जो SARC grouping जो है South Asian nations का, so how can we let's say revive that? So need to revive that for India especially, and what are the challenges involved in reviving that SARC grouping? Okay, so article is giving some good arguments in terms of challenges faced, need for reviving SARC and all these things. So in this manner we are going to discuss whenever in IR section GS2 paper, if the question is specifically on the regional, let's say grouping, India and its neighbor, it is part of our syllabus, and therefore there can be question on SARC because almost it has been 6 years wherein there is no summit happened of the heads of the government, SARC summit, because of let's say rivalry between India and Pakistan, so and other some contentious issues. So we are going to discuss that. So here it becomes important, especially after the pandemic and its impact and the China's ingression into India's neighboring countries, or we can say South Asian nations, in last 1 year. Because of that there is need of India let's say putting foot forward to revive this SARC. It is very important. Okay, so yes, this is what is given in the article. Let us see in detail. Reviving SARC. 36 years after it first began, South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation SARC appears to be all but dead in the water. The year 2020 marked the 6th year since the leaders of 8 nations that make up SARC were able to meet. ठीक है, so 2014 में जो last summit हुआ था उसके बाद में वो summit नहीं हुआ है. India's problems with Pakistan on terrorism, territorial claims and on its role in blocking SARC initiatives in connectivity and trade are well known. So these are some of the challenges. And yes, while China's incursions in Ladakh and Galwan killings constituted larger concern this year, India did not decline to attend the meetings with Chinese leadership at SCO, RIC and G20 and others. No concerns over territorial claims stopped Modi government from engaging with Nepal either. So basically we are inclined or happy to let's say deal with bilateral issues with China or Nepal whenever there are tensions in the relations, but somehow we are not taking our let's say foot forward or initiative to talk with Pakistan. Okay, so this is what it is talking in argument. Reviving SARC is crucial to countering the common challenges brought about by pandemic. So this is also one of the argument for need to revive this SARC. Pandemic's impact on South Asian economies is another area that calls for coordination. So impact of pandemic both on health and economy. ठीक है, तो दोनों important है, and that's why even in one of the report World Bank has estimated the losses have all suggested that South Asian countries work as a collective to set standards for labor from the region, also to promote more intra-regional transnational approach towards tourism, citing successful examples including East African single joint visa system or similar joint tourism initiatives like Mekong region or Caribbean islands. So such kind of things should be used. In one of the report it was suggested by World Bank. While it will be impossible for countries to cut themselves off from the global market entirely, regional initiatives will become the Goldilocks options. A very good statement. You can use this in way forward whenever we are talking about the if it is talking about the deglobalization, globalization, whether it is end of globalization and all these things. not too hot, not too cold, Goldilocks option. So generally Goldilocks zone जो है solar system में use किया जाता है, या the region between any, let's say, solar system wherein the habitable planets exist, तो उसको हम बोल सकते हैं कि Goldilocks zone, ठीक है. So the happy medium between globalization and hyper nationalism, तो इसको हमने Goldilocks option बोला गया है, and that needs to be, let's say, explored, that is regional initiatives. And there are some, let's say, international successful examples, but for India there is only one regional trade bloc, and that is defunct per se, we can say that largely, that is SAARC FTA, ठीक है. तो साउथ एशियन फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट, साफ्ता जिसको बोला गया है. But again we can say unless and until SAARC is revived, this SAFTA will not be, let's say, successful. Other examples are given, for example the new US Mexico Canada agreement, USMCA जिसको बोला जाता है, European Union is there, Mercosur of South American countries is there, or African Continental Free Trade Area is there, or Gulf Cooperation Council GCC is there, RCEP the recent example, right, ASEAN is also there. So for prelims perspective you need to know basics about all these regional trade blocks, ठीक है. ये कब शुरू हुआ था, कौन से countries involved है, right, and some, let's say, unique or unique features of that regional trade bloc if it is any, ठीक है. तो ये prelims perspective से आपको ये सारे पता होने चाहिए कौन से region में है. Okay, so yes, another argument for need of revival of this SAARC is that China's quest. So in last 1 year especially, the China has been making inroads into India's neighbors or South Asian nations. For example, apart from sending medicines, personal protective equipment kits and promising vaccines to most of the SAARC countries as part of its Health Silk Road initiative, at the same time China also conducted separate meetings with combinations of Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and discussed economic issues and Sinovac vaccine availability with them. Experts suggest that it is only a matter of time before Beijing holds the meeting of all SAARC countries together minus India and Bhutan, for they are all part of BRI. Even that they will be invited to join RCEP, which India declined. So this is going to happen according to experts in near future. So India's steps are more inclined towards bilateral relationships rather than focusing on reviving the regional grouping of SAARC. For example, apart from, let's say, one SAARC virtual meeting during the pandemic, most of the initiatives are bilateral initiatives like India, Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, India, Nepal. All these are, let's say, bilateral initiatives in last 1 year, and no regional, let's say, or combined effort for South Asia. Okay, despite the despondency, the rationale for its existence remains intact. For SAARC, we can say that while history and political grievances may be perceived differently, geography is reality. ऐसा बोलते हैं ना कि history changes but geography does not change. Okay, so that means the neighbor always remains the neighbor. So we need to have good relations with neighbor. Okay, so the political, let's say, or historical aspects can change, but geography is going to remain constant. So that's why in conclusion we can say that New Delhi must find its own prism with which to view its South Asian neighborhood as it should be, a unit that has a common future and as force multiplier for India's ambitions on the global stage. Very good statement in the end. A unit that has common future and as a force multiplier for India's ambitions on the global stage. Use this as a way forward, or lastly conclusion statement. Okay, so in this manner we can attempt this question here. While history and political grievances may be perceived differently, geography is the reality. With reference to this statement, analyze the need and challenges in revival of SAARC grouping. Okay, so first of all you can just briefly explain the meaning of this statement, that geography is reality means neighbors are going to be neighbors and there will be, let's say, challenges from the neighbors if we are not having good relations, or if it is there is no peace in the neighborhood, there will not be peace in our country. ये जो concept हम international relations में use करते हैं, so you can explain that briefly and then start with analyzing need and challenges in reviving SAARC grouping. तो ये article से आप input ले सकते हो. Then some prelims pointer from this article, that all the regional trade blocks, right? So USMCA, Mercosur, यूरोपियन यूनियन और ये सब चीज़ें जो है, सो इसको आपको तैयार करके रखना है. जैसे हमने बोला था कि IR के आपके कुछ नोट्स होंगे, तो उसमें एक सेक्शन होगा इंटरनेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशंस. सो इंटरनेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशंस एंड रीजनल ग्रुपिंग्स. सो फॉर दैट पर्पस you try to note down all important, let's say, search on the Google about these regional trade blocks in brief and put down some, let's say, points. कब शुरू हुआ था ये, कब एस्टेब्लिश हुआ था, कौन से कंट्रीज है, मेजर एस्पेक्ट्स. ओके, एंड सम बेसिक्स अबाउट रीजनल ट्रेड ब्लॉक्स. कंसेप्ट्स क्या क्या होते हैं वो इंपॉर्टेंट है प्रीलिम्स के लिए. अगेन, लाइक इट स्टार्ट्स विथ प्रिफरेंशियल ट्रेड यूनियन एंड एंड्स विथ इकोनॉमिक यूनियन. So in this manner, the more and more trade liberalization and removing the barriers between these countries. ठीक है, तो ये जो हम बोलते हैं ना कि नेशन स्टेट्स वाला कंसेप्ट है, या फिर हम बोल सकते हैं कि इन इकोनॉमिक यूनियन देयर इज द लार्जेस्ट फ्रीडम अमंग द कंट्रीज इन टर्म्स ऑफ मूवमेंट ऑफ गुड्स एंड पीपल. तो ये सारी चीजें हम देखते हैं इन सिक्वेंशियल मैनर. इस तरीके से सबसे ज्यादा होता है इकोनॉमिक यूनियन में. तो शुरुआत होती है प्रिफरेंशियल ट्रेड यूनियन. हियर 2 or more countries form a trading club or union and reduce tariffs on imports of each other. That is when they exchange tariff preferences and concessions. So ये 2 या 2 से ज्यादा कंट्रीज में ऐसा होता है कि टैरिफ रिड्यूस कर रहे हैं. फ्री ट्रेड यूनियन और एसोसिएशन, जिसको हम फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट जिनको बोलते हैं, मेंबर कंट्रीज एबोलिश ऑल टैरिफ्स विद इन द यूनियन बट मेंटेन देयर इंडिविजुअल टैरिफ्स अगेंस्ट द रेस्ट ऑफ द वर्ल्ड. उसको हम बोलते हैं फ्री ट्रेड यूनियन. देन कम्स द कस्टम्स यूनियन. Countries abolish all tariffs within and adopt the common external tariff against the rest of the world. तो external tariff जो होगा वो common tariff use करेंगे वो. इसको हम customs union बोला गया है. Okay, so in free trade agreement और इसमें क्या अलग है, तो rather here individual tariff ये maintain करते हैं. यहाँ पे जो combine external common external tariff होगा. And common market, it is very famous as we know that. Like for example SAARC countries and all, so not SAARC, ASEAN countries and all, in addition to customs union, unrestricted movement of all factors of production including labor between the members of countries. In case of European common market, once visa is obtained, one can get employed in France or Germany or in any other member countries with limited restrictions. So such kind of common market can be there. And in economic union, for example, at present the European Union, here the highest form of economic cooperation happens, wherein there can be, in addition to the common market, there can be common currency, common fiscal and monetary policies, exchange rate policies and all these things. The best example at present is European Union, जिसमें हम देखते हैं कि common currency euro है, right? And there are some, let's say, policy making bodies for complete European Union. There is also some parliament like legislative bodies and all these things are there. Fine. So highest level of economic cooperation, economic union. तो ये sequential manner में होता है. ठीक है, तो either there can be question on the gradation of economic cooperation in the sequential manner from least level to highest level. तो ये आपको sequence भी पता होना चाहिए. And there are minute differences among them, तो वो भी आप तैयार करके रखिए प्रीलिम्स एग्जामिनेशन के लिए. फाइन. नेक्स्ट आर्टिकल, सुप्रीम कोर्ट stays implementation of 3 controversial farm laws. So yes, this is yesterday's development, and on that there is editorial also, but here this is from different perspective. Editorial is talking about the judicial activism, or we can say that how judiciary may get involved into the legislative function or separation of power, जिसको हम बोलते हैं one of the important feature of our constitution. So it is talking about that. While this is just a follow-up news, we can say that the Supreme Court has formed a 4-member committee to look into the laws and recommend some measures or if reforms if any. ठीक है, तो इसके बारे में हम देखते हैं कि क्या बताया गया है. इन फर्स्ट पार्ट इट इज टॉकिंग अबाउट दैट जजमेंट एंड इन सेकंड पार्ट इट इज एनालाइजिंग दैट जजमेंट. ओके, सो judicial activism, separation of powers. So separation of power concept, basically it is talking about the 3 arms of the state, that is judiciary, executive and legislature. So separation of powers in our constitution, the concept here involves is these arms of the states are having separate powers with enough checks and balances. Okay, so this is very important. We can say that to maintain the distance or we can say enough distance between these 3 arms, at the same time there are some checks and balances to check any abuse of powers. Okay, the Supreme Court's interim order in the ongoing contestation between large sections of farmers and center over the new farm laws may be motivated by laudable intentions to break the deadlock in negotiations. One portion of the order states 3 laws seeks to maintain the minimum support price as before and prevents possible dispossession of farmers on their land under new laws. The stated reason is that the stay would assuage the hurt feeling of the farmers and encourage them to go to the negotiating table. तो ये एक reason उन्होंने बताया है सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने. However, it is somewhat disconcerting that the stay of legislation is effected solely as an instrument to facilitate court's arrangement rather than the basis of any identified legal or constitutional infirmities in the law. So basically the Supreme Court did not go into the let's say checking of legal or constitutionalities of these laws. Rather the stay is only for let's say assuaging the feelings of the farmers and encouraging them to go to the negotiating table with the central government. The order forming the 4-member committee may indeed help relieve the current tensions and allay the government's fears that Republic Day celebration may be disrupted. However, it is not clear if it would help the reaching of amicable settlement as the farmers body has let's say refused to appear before the panel. ठीक है, तो ये जो पैनल बनाया है तो वो एक्सेप्टेड नहीं है फार्मर्स बॉडीज को. Court's approach raises the question whether it should traverse beyond its adjudicative role and pass judicial orders of significant impact or import on the basis of sanguine hope and medicinal zeal. So basically here it is moving out of its traditional role of we can say adjudication and also checking on the constitutionalities of legislations and moving into the mediational and sanguine hope and medicinal zeal. ठीक है, तो ये जो mediational role सुप्रीम कोर्ट प्ले कर रहा है, ये लास्ट ईयर भी हमने देखा था. The Supreme Court has come up with the mediation in one important case, that is Ayodhya case. Let's say Ram temple वाला जो केस है. In second case Supreme Court let's say mediated especially in the protest against the CA that were going on. Shaheen Bagh protest जो है वहाँ पे भी Supreme Court ने intervene किया है. This is now the 3rd case in last 2 years. Okay, so that's why you need to know the past cases also कि कहाँ ये Supreme Court intervene कर रहा है mediational role के लिए. Fine. It is only in the wake of government's perceived failure that the court has chosen to intervene, but it is unfortunate that it is not in the form of adjudicating key questions such as constitutionality of laws, but by handing over the role of thrashing out on the issues involved to the 4-member panel. Now it is also a problem that it is not clear how the 4 members on the committee were chosen. So there is no clarity, no transparency on that aspect. Okay, it would be strange and even questionable if the court directed Parliament to bring the laws in line with committee's views, because that is the function of Parliament. So there should be, let's say, review of the laws or bills by the parliamentary committees rather than the external committee that is appointed by the judiciary or Supreme Court. Okay, so that's why lastly we can say that while the negotiated settlement is always preferable, it is equally important that judicial power is not seen as being used to dilute the import of protest or delegitimize farmers union that stay away from the proceedings of the panel or interfere with the powers of parliament to legislate. ठीक है, तो ये जो इंटरफेरेंस हम बोल रहे हैं, that should not be there by the judiciary in law making, let's say, process by the legislature. This is the domain of legislature, wherein the judiciary may intervene if it directs to bring changes according to the committee's recommendation in future. तो इसलिए हम separation of powers, there can be question in mains examination in GS2 paper, so you need to know about all these developments. Fine. Okay. Strained ties. So the context of the article, it is talking about the strained ties between the elected chief minister of Puducherry and the LG Kiran Bedi of Puducherry state, and that's why it is talking about federalism, as well as we can say that there was question when there were strained tie, let's say, relations between the elected chief minister of Delhi and LG of Delhi. ठीक है, तो लेफ्टिनेंट गवर्नर जो होते हैं यूनियन टेरिटरीज के दिल्ली में और पुदुचेरी में, so somehow their role is being questioned from time to time to interfere in the effective functioning of state polity. ठीक है, तो ये क्वेश्चन आपको जरूर आ सकता है, and you need to know about all these things, all these developments for GS2 paper. ठीक है, तो in recent 3-day long protest led by Puducherry Chief Minister Narayan Swamy under the banner of the Secular Democratic Progressive Alliance against the Lieutenant Governor Kiran Bedi came as no surprise given the strained ties between two constitutional functionaries. They have been at loggerheads over many matters, most recently on the appointment of state election commissioners. ठीक है, तो बाकी कौन से matters है? The principal issue of contention is implementation of direct benefit transfer in the public distribution system using cash instead of free rice being given to the beneficiaries. Okay, तो ये एक bone of contention है relationship में. ठीक है, so Miss Bedi should take into account the legitimate requirements of elected government and try to accommodate Mr. Narayan Swamy's views on important matters such as free rice scheme. Okay, so such kind of, let's say, things that remains the prerogative of executive or state government, and wherein the lieutenant governor should not interfere, or whatever the views of the government should be accommodated in such cases. At the same time, with near breakdown of communication between the lieutenant governor and chief minister, the center should step in and in the interest of smooth administration of the union territory. तो ये एक्चुअली बहुत सालों से अभी ये चल रहा है, जब से हम बोल सकते हैं कि किरण बेदी अपॉइंट हुए हैं पुदुचेरी में, ये न्यूज़ में है. All time there is friction between the head of the, let's say, union territory and the elected head, we can say that the chief minister in that union territory. ठीक है, तो ये फॉलो अप में रखिए. इशू मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ GS2 में there was already question on the tensions between CM of Delhi and LG of Delhi, so we can have follow up on this also, and you can use this as example if the question is talking about that let's say friction between the ties of two constitutional functionaries. Fine. Okay. Lastly, some important captions and quotations. ये आप कोई भी essay में यूज कर सकते हो जहाँ पे either IR का है, ठीक है, क्वेश्चन है, या फिर essay है. So geography is reality, while history and political grievances may be perceived differently. And India must find its own prism with which it views the South Asian neighborhood. So again IR or IR से related essay, India and its neighbors. ठीक है, तो we can expect such kind of essay topic also, India and its relationship with neighbors, what are the challenges involved and all these things. Use that in your IR paper as well as essay paper. Fine. Okay, so these were important articles from today's The Hindu newspaper. For further information on editorial discussion classes or ED classes, wherein in-depth analysis of mains related issues and articles is done by Ansari Sir and team, you can contact LUKMAAN IAS. Thank you.